friends. Happy Valentine's Day. So, unfortunately, Steve Wilks, or fortunately, depending on what you expected, Steve Wilks was let go earlier today, about an hour ago. Kyle Shanahan just had a morning call around 12:30 with the media to let them know that he just informed Steve Wilks that he was fired. Um, I have some questions for you guys. One, do you think that it was a mutual parting that went on? Because, I mean, Kyle Shanahan had interjected in Steve Wilks's decision making multiple times throughout the year. I kind of think because people are assuming that Steve Wilks was scapegoated for the Super Bowl. If you ask me, I think Steve Wilks actually had his defense ready for the Super Bowl. How they played, especially in that first quarter and second half or first half, was really good. Yeah, he let it go at the end, but Kyle Shanahan to me performed way worse, and his offense performed way worse in the Super Bowl, particularly. Um, if you put up 19 points in regulation against Patrick Mahomes, you can't expect to win. I think the fact that Steve Wilks' defense held Patrick Mahomes to 19 points, if you would have told fans and media people that beforehand, everyone would have bet on the 49ers to win. Um, so I think if you're talking about the Super Bowl specifically, there's no way that Kyle Shanahan can blame Steve Wilks for that loss. Now, I do think and what the reason I think he was probably let go is there was just a disconnect that has been going on for quite some time with Steve Wilks. And if you think about it, kind of just goes back to when he was first hired. He doesn't coach in the same style that the 49ers do with the wide nine. He specializes in blitzes in the defensive backfield. That was his specialty. The 49ers are not built like that. I was just explaining my friend, I'm staying with my friends and they don't super watch football. And this was before Steve Wilks got fired, but I was explaining that I thought he might get fired. And my thing was like, he was just a bad fit for the organization. This organization has put quarterback money into Nick Bosa, into their front seven, into that front four. What they need and what they want, and the way that they built their team isn't even to be like a quarterback first team or an offensive first team. Under Robert Saleh, under D'Amico Ryans, the defense and specifically that defensive line, getting pressure, getting sacks, and the linebackers were the most pivotal. The reason, I mean, Charvarius Ward isn't even that high price of a corner, and he's the 49ers, like where they put the most money into. Deommodore Lenoir, what, fifth round pick? Or maybe he was a seventh round pick, Ambry Thomas, fifth round pick, one of those. But I'm talking later round picks in that defensive backfield. Deshaun Gibson is, diamond and rough, super lucky. But even he's been on like 16 teams. He's older. They didn't put a ton of money into, I'm a rookie in Jair Brown starting, obviously for Hafunga, who is an all pro. But those are all surprises. Like those were all, um, the success in the backfield was supposed to be like the way that the 49ers built their team was if that defensive backfield was just mediocre, that defense was still supposed to be a number one to like in between number one and top five defenses because all the money was supposed to be in that defensive line. They went out and got Hargrave. They went out and got Chase Young, which what a disappointment he ended up being. I know that he had one sack in the Super Bowl, but the reason I think Steve Wilks was fired wasn't just because of the Super Bowl performance. And if Kyle Shanahan is trying to convince himself, convince coaches, convince the team that all that needs to be changed is a defensive coordinator position, then I think that's completely wrong. I think that firing Steve Wilks and using him as a scapegoat for the reason that the 49ers lost the Super Bowl is completely incorrect. I think Steve Wilks did his job, more than did his job in that Super Bowl. I know that he had a lot of zero blitzes. He was letting them walk down the field. I'm not saying he was the best ever, but if you were to compare Kyle Shanahan's performance in the Super Bowl and how his offense performed and how ready that defense was, that was defensively, not in totality, but defensively, that was one of the better games that this defense has played in the second half of the season. Like I think, especially coming off that NFC Championship game where effort was such a huge question, I feel like those guys were playing for Steve Wilks. But so I think if it's purely a Super Bowl decision and purely a way to kind of build up morale, because if you look at Eric Armstead, if you looked at Nick Bosa, if you looked at even George Kittle, these guys who, when they lost the Super Bowl in 2019, were, had mojo. They thought they were going to be back. They felt determined. They were young. They were like, we're going to keep doing this. We're going to get over this help. We were screwed over because Nick Bosa was held. We were the better team. They did not have that attitude post game this Super Bowl. This Super Bowl, they looked defeated. Nick Bosa, a reporter asked him many times to kind of like do that morale boosting, like, we're going to get him next year type thing. And Nick Bosa was so defeated, he could not do it. He like turned down the opportunity multiple times. And I think that Taylor, I, I forget his last name, but the long snapper went out on Twitter and said like how defeated he felt and how he doesn't feel like the 49ers will ever be able to get back there with the amount of luck that it took to get there, with the amount of hard work that it took to get there. But he himself said that they felt like that the last 2 years when they lost two, and just over time, by the time spring comes and training camp comes, you're kind of back on it and the pain of the immediate loss isn't so prominent. So I'm sure that Nick Bosa is going to have confidence. I'm sure that Kittle's going to have confidence. But I know coming right off the Super Bowl, they did not. I mean, last time George Kittle was like, there's that iconic moment of him being like, we're going to be back. We're going to be back. This time, in his right after the Super Bowl and yesterday when they were cleaning out their locker rooms, George Kittle, when prompted to kind of say the we'll be back thing, was like, you guys have no idea how much extra time this is on our body, how hard this is for us to keep getting almost over the mountaintop, like climbing up this hill, putting in all this extra work. Like, if you go to the postseason and play multiple games every single year, that's like adding a whole nother season on your body. So players looked very defeated. I think when you have one person to blame, for example, when Tart dropped that interception, right? It's like, okay, we can get rid of Tart. That was horrible luck. No one ever in that situation is going to drop that ball. We can wash that and believe that if we just bring everyone back and can change that one moment, that we're going to be good enough. In the NFC Championship game last year, they were like, we're the better team. How unlucky is it that freaking like 4 quarterbacks all go down in a season, 2 in one game? Like, if Brock Purdy stayed healthy, we would be in the Super Bowl. We would have won that. They could have that morale. I think the problem with this Super Bowl was they had to look themselves in the eye and say, like, we lost because we didn't know because our coach didn't know the overtime rules. We lost because of penalties, because our star player fumbled, because our star offensive lineman was holding, because we couldn't score points when we were dominating in the first quarter, because we couldn't score. We went through a whole dead point in the third quarter. I don't know. I think defensively, Steve Wilks outcoached Kyle Shanahan in the Super Bowl. So if the reasoning for him being fired was Super Bowl performance, I would say that's wrong. Now, if you guys listen, I think David Lombardi and Grant Cohn both posted the press conference that Kyle Shanahan just had. So not right now. Finish my stream. But when my stream's over, you guys can go watch that. And Kyle Shanahan did not say that his firing was based off the Super Bowl. He did say it was just like a disconnect in differences throughout the year and a disconnect in scheme. But the only problem with that, like, I agree, there's been a huge disconnect and the scheme obviously was not a fit. But my issue with that is they knew that coming into the season. Coming into the season, everyone was like, this is not like Steve Wilks does not call the wine nine. He's not familiar with it. He's never coached it before. He's been a head coach and a defensive coordinator for years, 16 years now, more than 16 years, maybe 16 years in the NFL. And he's never coached that before. Like, that is not his specialty. Kyle Shanahan thought that he could just say, this, teach him my scheme, have him learn on the job. What was it during that down streak? Didn't Steve Wilks himself come out and say, like, I'm still learning the defense? Like, he was learning on the job this year. I just think that in hindsight, it was a really bad move for them to bring in someone and then like immediately undermine him by saying, you're hired, but don't coach, don't call anything you want to call, don't call your system, don't call your scheme, don't implement anything that you want to do. You're just going to be the head guy to call what we like, what our guys are comfortable with. You can do that. You can just be the, talking guy that executes our system. We don't want you to change anything because everyone's been great, and just do that. And when that wasn't working, what did he do? He said, I prefer being in the booth. And they said, come down. You're not going to be in the booth anymore. You're going to be down on the field." And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think he coached better on the field. I know Fred Warner said that he felt way more comfortable having him there and having direct, easy communication. I think Nick Bosa, after their first game or his first game where Steve Wilks was on the field, said he liked having him there. But that's what I'm saying. Like, normally, you want players who listen to the coach. And this seemed like the opposite dynamic was installed like very early on in the season where the coach had to listen to the players. The coach had to defer to Kyle Shanahan. The coach had to defer to the assistant coaches. What did Fred Warner's coach want? What did Chris Kosarek want? Like, even though he was the defensive coordinator, he was actually subservient to all these other guys. Like, it felt like Nick Bosa could say, "Hey, I don't like when you're calling the system this way. You need to call it this way." And Steve Wilks had to change. And the only problem with that is, like, how do you expect players to buy in when they see the guy that they respect, which is Kyle Shanahan, not buying in? They see Kyle Shanahan doesn't respect Steve Wilks. Then the younger players, they see Nick Bosa doesn't respect Steve Wilks. So how is Jair Brown supposed to respect Steve Wilks and trust in Steve Wilks? How is Diomede Lenore supposed to do that when they see these either highly paid veterans or their actual coach kind of constantly undermining their coach and telling him what to do? So because of that, I can see, like, from my perspective, if I was Steve Wilks, I don't know if I would still want to be here, because, like, you're calling a timeout in the middle of the Super Bowl, screaming the F word. Like, there was the camera zoom in on Kyle Shanahan, and he's like, "What the fuck?" Like, it was very obvious he was saying F word, like, screaming into his headset, just showing up Steve Wilks. I'm not saying, like, if he thought that was a bad play call, that's on Kyle Shanahan to stop that as the head coach. Like, because if it would have been a bad play call and then not gone right, people would have been like, "Well, Kyle Shanahan, why didn't you call a timeout? Like, you can tell Steve Wilks what to do." So I'm not even saying it's bad that Kyle Shanahan interjected. I'm just saying that the way that he showed him up reminds me a lot of during the losing streak when Kyle Shanahan's offense was scoring 17 points in the modern NFL. The NFL, sorry if I don't know, I just had a little volume thing. Sorry if this thing is I'm new to this mic. Do you guys like it? It's a new mic, guys. Anyways, um I got so sidetracked. But during the losing streak, in the regular season, Kyle Shanahan's offense was scoring 17 points. In an offensive league in the modern NFL where all the rules are basically set on defense, defensive players can get thrown out, get penalties for everything. It's set up to be a passing league, and Kyle Shanahan's offense was barely scoring. Steve Wilks had to go out there as if this was like college, go out there and bare his soul, take responsibility, say, "I'm wearing this." Like, that's a crazy, not and that's okay to do behind the scenes. But in the NFL, to do that to the media in week 5, like, it's not like he was like, last year he was the coach of the Panthers and they had like one win, right? Okay, when you have like one win and you're the head coach, you got to go out there and be like, "Oops, like, that sucks. I'm not doing good." When you're the defensive coordinator, you should not have to go out there in week 5 of the season and say, "Hey, I know that we're on a losing streak and it's my fault, but my freaking my head coach that's supposed to be this offensive genius can't even score 20 points." Same thing in the Super Bowl. Like, I know that it 25-22, but in regulation, the offense scored 19 points. I think if anyone would have said, "Hey, the 49ers scored 19 points," we would have said, "Oh, well, the Chiefs are going to win." I mean, I would have assumed that the Chiefs would have scored more too. But and that's what I mean. Like, the defense did good. Like, they held Patrick Mahomes to 19 points. And yeah, I think maybe I'm sure I haven't gone through the comments yet. I know my dad and I kind of argued about this, and he thought that Steve Wilks did really, poorly, especially playing a lot of that prevent defense. I know that's a defense that drives me nuts. I don't understand it. Like, and I think maybe that's just me maybe I need to get a better understanding of football. I hate when anyone does that. I'm like, you're giving them free, easy yards. Patrick Mahomes has been excellent in the 10 to 15 yard range. Yeah, like, obviously it's scary to leave the deep throws wide open, but it's harder for someone to beat you that way. Like, if those are less easy targets to catch, like, make wide receivers that aren't Travis Kelce beat you. So there's definitely fair criticism from the Super Bowl for Steve Wilks, but I don't think the loss is all on him. Now, where do we go from here? I think that that's an interesting question as well, right? People have been talking. I know, I think it was Larry Kruger, who does a lot of 49ers coverage. He talked about Bill Belichick. Now, I don't know if Belichick is going to want to be a defensive coordinator. He has, he's the most winningest head coach in NFL history. To me, that might be a little bit of an ego hit. But if him and Kyle Shanahan have some sort of relationship, maybe that could be happening. Um, I think that their linebackers coach or DB coach right now, he was apparently helping Kyle Shanahan adjust the play calls that Steve Wilks was making in the Super Bowl, like when Kyle Shanahan stopped him and dramatically called that timeout. Apparently, there was a different coach who's an assistant coach on the 49ers who was helping Kyle Shanahan with decision makings that wasn't Steve Wilks. This is what I'm saying. I think regardless of the Super Bowl, it makes sense that they parted ways because clearly they didn't trust Steve Wilks if they had to watch him this drastically. Like Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans both talked about how Kyle Shanahan is controlling and wants to be involved in everything. But both of them said, like, in the games, they felt like they had control of the defense, and they could like be free to make their own adjustments and make their own mistakes. It was more like in game planning prior to the game that Kyle Shanahan would want to be involved and want to put his input in. But during the game, Kyle Shanahan would focus on the offense and he would allow those guys to focus on the defense. Where this year, Kyle Shanahan himself, after that losing streak, came out and said that he was going to be more involved in the defensive decision makings. And I don't know, to me, that completely undermined Steve Wilks. But I'm going to take some comments now. I just wanted to get some of my initial thoughts out. This won't be a long live stream. I just had, big deal to have someone let go, especially after their first year. Um, so let's see. Let's start from the beginning because I know there's been a lot of people in here. Yo, fire Kyle Shanahan. Um, this isn't not the fire Shanahan, but the other one. There's one under it. Sorry, had to ban you. Don't make inappropriate comments in my comment section, please. Thank you so much. I do think it's interesting, like, if you're talking about Bill Belichick, maybe he would want to be a head coach. Would Kyle Shanahan ever want to just be an offensive coordinator? But I know that's never going to happen. I also do, even though he's frustrated me, he's lost 3 Super Bowls. I do have faith that eventually Kyle Shanahan will make it over over the hump. You look at a guy like Andy Reid, I think it's really hard to give up on someone like Kyle Shanahan when you see Andy Reid's trajectory, when you see the success that the 49ers have had under Kyle Shanahan. But there is a point that you get to where you're like, it is this as far as you can go? Like, can we say thank you so much for turning around our team, for building it up, for making it such a winning culture, but like we need that extra edge to get over the hump. Maybe. I don't know. I could see if other problem with like making Bill Belichick like a head coach is he'd probably only want to coach for like 1 year, win the Super Bowl, and then you'd be like shit out of luck. But at that point, that's like first class problems, right? Because you won a Super Bowl, so that is all that matters. I'm not on board with firing Kyle Shanahan right now. I definitely wouldn't he just got a contract extension too, so this is just funny to even talk about. But I definitely wouldn't be like Jed York, who came out before the Super Bowl even happened and was like, Kyle Shanahan has a lifetime contract. It's like, well, now he just went into the Super Bowl and didn't know sorry, I almost swore. Didn't know the freaking overtime rules. So maybe you shouldn't be just writing a blank check for him. I think that having pressure on your coach, even if he's a good coach, is important. But I look so shiny. I think it's because I'm in front of this window and there's like a little, what are those things? I want to turn this around. Can I do that? Nope. Okay. I don't want to break this. But anyways, doesn't matter. They should fire Brian Schneider next. Special teams has been terrible the last 2 seasons. No improvement from Hightower. I completely agree. And I remember you were in my comment section right after the Super Bowl. I think, was it on Sunday night? Maybe it was Monday. But you said that same thing. And I was more on board with that than letting go of Steve Wilks. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, Daniel Bullocks is the guy that I think that they should. I was missing his name. He's the defensive backs coordinator, the one that was helping Kyle Shanahan in the Super Bowl make adjustments to Steve Wilks. I was surprised that they didn't give him a look when they hired Steve Wilks. He's been working under Robert Saleh and then under D'Amico Ryans, which is exactly what D'Amico was running D'Amico was studying under Robert Saleh before he became the defensive coordinator. I don't know if Daniel Bullocks is just like a little bit too young. Maybe they felt like he wasn't ready for it yet. But Kyle Shanahan was asked about that in that press conference that, like I said, David Lombardi and Grant both posted that. I'm sure maybe Mayoko or even the 49ers might post it by the time this live is over. But that's where I saw it before I went live. But Daniel Bullocks, he's the defensive backs coordinator. Kyle Shanahan did say that they're going to be interviewing him along with a lot of other people. But I think that going to someone in house might be the way to go, because I think going outside of the house to get Steve Wilks, everyone said like, oh, this might be a problem because Kyle Shanahan is particular and they've built their defense in a very particular way and they want it to be ran in a very particular way. And I know a lot of fans and a lot of people and content creators that were saying it's not a big deal. Steve Wilks will be able to adjust his system, be able to adjust his scheme. I don't think so. I think Kyle Shanahan is really particular and you need to work in his system for multiple years in order to know how to play or in order to know how to call it right. So yeah, I would definitely look at Daniel Bullocks, who is the defensive backs coordinator, and see, I'm sure they're going to look at multiple people, but that was kind of on who will replace Steve Wilks. With this comment, Brian Schneider, I agree. Special teams under this regime, and even before this regime, special teams has been a problem for the 49ers for quite some time. Brian Schneider is definitely not getting it done. Ray McLeod came out and basically said he didn't regret trying to make a play on the ball instead of just falling on it, even though like in freaking flag football when I was a kid and they let girls do it because you were not even 12, you were like 7. They always teach you if there's a fumble, just fall on the ball. You don't need to pick it up. So yeah, I couldn't believe that Ray doubled down that was the right decision. I think this is kind of funny in like contrast to Steve Wilks being fired. Spagnuolo just got an extension. That makes sense. He freaking took Kyle Shanahan's lunch money, didn't he? Damn. That he's a really, really, really good defensive coordinator. I mean, if you're the Chiefs, you have to be flying high that he's your defensive coordinator. He's won 4 Super Bowls. He's incredible. Incredible. Good morning, Ashley. What's going on? I heard they fired the defensive coordinator of the 49ers, Steve Wilks. Yes. Do you think that that's the right thing for them to do? I don't know. I have been live for about 22 minutes talking about that. M- to summarize, yes, I think it was the right thing to do, not because of his performance in the Super Bowl, but because Kyle Shanahan constantly undermined him. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Kyle Shanahan constantly undercut him all season. And therefore, I felt like the players had zero faith in him because the players really trust Kyle Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan's judgment. And when they saw that he didn't trust Steve Wilks, all the stars decided that they were going to call the system and that they didn't need to have any faith in Steve Wilks. So I think that it was just there was a disconnect going on there. In hindsight, I don't think he should have ever been hired. I remember when they were choosing between Fangio and Steve Wilks, I was really happy that they went with Steve Wilks because Fangio's more known as like like kind of like a gnarly, angry guy. When he was in Denver, who's the player? He used to play for USC, but when he got hired at Miami, this guy who was a former player of his went on this whole thread about basically the hazing that he did to his team. What a nasty guy he was. That he was like forcing people to take what is it? Tortadol shots, that he was like really pushing people to play through injuries, just that he had a really hard time connecting with people. Um, and was just kind of more negative. And I think D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh were so positive and they have so much energy and they were kind of like the bright guys on the team, the bright guys with power, where Kyle Shanahan is also more of a curmudgeon, maybe not like in a trying to push players to play through injury way, but just very old school, very kind of quiet, reserved. And I thought that by the way that the Panthers players were talking about Steve Wilks and how they improved when he was promoted. Who was it? Not Matt Nagy. Who's the guy now? He's the coach of Nebraska. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? Whoever was the coach of the Panthers, and then in the middle of the season they fired they fired him on the Panthers and they hired Steve Wilks. Well, the team ended up doing better. So I thought, and everyone said that like Steve Wilks had tons of energy. I know um, Sam Darnold and running back, best running back ever, Christian McCaffrey, Jesus, Matt Rule. So Matt Rule was fired um, from the Panthers. Everyone's saying Matt Rule, Matt Rule. Yes, sorry, I don't know why I had Matt Nagy on the brain. I knew it wasn't Matt Nagy. I just couldn't think of his name. But when he was let go from the Panthers, Steve Wilks took over, and they started having the most success that they've had on the Panthers, even though they traded away Christian McCaffrey, some of their best players. The guy that ended up going to the Bears. So they traded away some of their best players, and there's like zero talent on the Panthers, anyways. So they took away the very, very little talent that they did have. And then under Steve Wilks, they saw an improvement. And so when the 49ers were choosing between Steve Wilks and Vic Fangio, I, as just like a observer, knowing Kyle Shanahan is more of a reserved coach, I thought that Steve Wilks was going to be that more energetic guy. Unfortunately, when he came here, not that he's not energetic at all, but definitely nothing close to a Robert Saleh or D'Amico Ryans. Now, I will say in the press conference that Kyle Shanahan did today, he said that energy was not a reason that Steve Wilks was let go, and it won't be something he's looking for in the next head coach, or not in the next head coach, in the next defensive coordinator. I think that's a problem. I think you have to look for someone who can like relate to the players. I think if I'm saying what is the like where did it go wrong with Steve Wilks? I think it's player buy-in, and whether that's because right away Kyle Shanahan was undermining him, or because he didn't have that energy that the players feed off of and needed that they're used to from guys like Robert Saleh and then D'Amico Ryans. I don't know, but I definitely think that that should be something that Kyle Shanahan keeps in mind when he's looking for the next guy, is someone to balance Kyle out. You need some balance on your team. You need some sort of positivity, or even if it's not like, honestly, just like passion. Like, because sometimes Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans would be on the field like swearing guys out, like freaking out. But at least he's like passionate. And then like immediately, if a negative play did happen, and then it was like the next time that they were on, they got a 3 and out or something, he was like a goldfish, like able to bounce off of it and be like, whoa, like his celebration was bigger or like just as big, if not bigger, than his demonstrative kind of like negative energy. And I think Kyle can be, and I'm not saying Kyle's a bad coach, but I think Kyle leans more negative. I remember he was saying, even when he was buying a house with his wife, he made his wife cry because they were looking through houses and Kyle Shanahan would just start pointing out everything wrong with the houses. And so his wife was like, oh, you hate this house, like this is the house I loved. And Kyle was like, "Oh no, I want to buy the house. Like I love it. Why would you think I hate it?" And she was like, "All you did was tear it apart." And he was like, "Oh, that's just how my brain works. Like I was just thinking of the problems and like how we would fix them. Doesn't mean I don't like it." And so I think that that can be really taxing on players, and you need to have that positive force. Al Bundy says, vanilla defense. I agree. I mean, I think that they can find, I think they're, even though I'm kind of like, I'm standing up for Steve Wilks in the way that I don't think that the Bowl loss was on him, but I'm not against the 49ers letting him go. I just think that the timing is kind of weird because I think they are trying to make it feel like he was responsible for that. But I think letting him go is totally fine. I think there was multiple games where it felt like, remember that when Kirk Cousins freaking looked like the best quarterback in the entire league? It felt like the Vikings knew every single play that Steve Wilks was going to play. Same thing with Joe Burrow. Like they were those that during that streak, it felt like there was just zero disguise. They Nick Bosa, for whatever reason, had a terrible year this year. Maybe it was because of his contract and not being able to prepare in the offseason like he normally would. But I think that there was things that Steve Wilks should have been able to do to open up his star player to get more sacks that he couldn't do. I know that they did turn, I'm happy that they turned around in the Super Bowl, but if your defense is having effort issues, if you see people jogging and giving up touchdowns when they're making freaking hundreds of $1 million, oh, thousands of millions, whatever, millions of dollars. And you can't get them to play hard in the NFC Championship game. Like I agree. I'm not surprised that he was let go. Like I said, I think it could have even been a mutual decision. I think it just wasn't working. I just also don't blame him like for the Super Bowl particularly. Kyle Montour says Kyle calling a timeout in overtime to stop momentum was huge as well. He knew Steve Wilks was calling not hard to see. Bad defense, not hard to see. I agree. When he was doing that, my dad was like, "Why are they calling a zero blitz? Holy shit, holy shit. I hate this guy. You should fire him." I was like, "Dad, I'm not the head coach, but I'm so glad that you're texting me and you think I have that power." I'm just kidding. My dad might be like in the comments right now, so I'm kind of making a joke. But I agree. There was, even though I don't think it was all on him, and holding Patrick Mahomes to 19 and then 25 is commendable. I do think that he didn't like, I think that they can get better. I'm just saying I don't think it was all on him, but I definitely think they can get better. They went from number 1 against the run to 26 this year. Yeah, they got bad against the run this year. And especially they got Hargrave, who was supposed to be, I guess he was supposed to be better in the past, but still, I mean, Kinlaw was healthy the entire year, and Kinlaw is like a big run stuffing guy. Like he's not very good in pass protection. I mean, in pass pro, but like I don't know. I just think I think you're right. I think you're right. It was a huge shame that they got worse, especially against the run when this is a team that's supposed to pride themselves on physicality. Missed tackles were a huge problem this year too. I don't have the stats for that, but with our linebackers being all pro, I mean, I know Dre Greenlaw, my prayers go up to him, but he's injured now. But an amazing tackler, Fred Warner, is supposed to, be the number one. Someone says Kinlaw equals bust. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think they're keeping him around. We did improve on the back end, but overall, the defense was lackluster most of the year. I agree. And I think the issue is this team is not built to, like, Steve Wilks having his specialty be in the backfield was already a disadvantage because they care less about their backfield than they do about their front four and their front seven. They want that's where the money is. They want those guys to be the prominent part of their team. Um, Defense was perfect. Fire Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I don't think defense was perfect. Um, Run defense. Think again, big guy. Yeah, I think that this guy is saying that the run defense was not perfect. I agree. Run defense was not perfect. Defense did struggle. Um, this is my dad. I told you he was very upset about this. Uh, zero cover zero is another word for prevent defense, meaning you prevent you from winning. My dad hates prevent defense. Every time they're like 10 yards off the ball, he's like, they're just gonna walk down the field. They're just gonna walk down the field. Why would you let them do this? Why would you let them do this? Looks like Steve Wilks is being used as a scapegoat. I agree. I don't think that firing him was wrong. I think that the fact that they hired him so soon, a day after, kind of like when they were questioned about it, Kyle Shanahan wouldn't give any sort of like faith. I think he knew probably then that he was leaning towards firing him, but maybe wasn't 100% sure. Imagine if you went into your boss, like end of the year review for you, and you're like, and someone was like, "Oh," or like for me, "Oh, are you gonna keep Ashley around?" And they were like, "Um, we'll have to review her. We'll have to review how she did. I don't know." I'd be scared. I'd be scared. I'd be like, I would hope that I did a good enough job that your initial reaction is like, yeah, we really want her back. She's really good. If that's not your reaction, then that's scary. Um, I wanted to bring up, did you guys hear about the problem at the KC parade? I will say I saw it right before I went live. I didn't see it, but I like saw it trending on Twitter. I don't know enough about it to speak on it. Really, really, really sad times in America. It's sad, you know, parents are scared to let their kids go to school, scared to go to concerts, scared to go to probably football games, any sort of big events. Really, really sucks that you know humanity is like that. People need a lot of help. I don't want to touch on this too much. I also don't know how much I can talk about it on YouTube because I know a lot of these words and stuff are like can get your channel banned. But my heart goes out to anyone who was affected. I don't even know like if someone actually passed away or if there was just like a sighting. I don't have enough information to talk on this, but horribly terrible, very, very scary. Um, so much bigger than football. I really, really hope that everyone's okay. And if they're not okay, I pray for their families. Todd says, didn't have to accept the job. I agree, but I mean, let's be honest, black coaches in the NFL don't get a ton of opportunity. I think this year was the most people of color that were ever hired. Uh I think Steve Wilks was unfairly kind of let go of that Panthers job. He did a really good job there. If you think about the Raiders, last year, I know this year they kept their assistant coach, but last year they let their assistant coach go. I I don't think it's that easy to say like, oh, well, just didn't have to accept the job. Coaching an opportunity to coach defense on this 49ers team with these stars, this team that is constantly in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl hunt, had a top 5 defense for 4 years before him. I don't think, you know, have you guys ever lied on your resume to get a better job than maybe you're qualified for? And your belief in yourself is just like, if they hire me, if they give me a chance, like I believe that I'm gonna learn on the job. I'm gonna figure it out. Like I'm gonna anything that I don't feel completely qualified for, I'm gonna put 120% effort in and I'm gonna show up because like this is such a good opportunity. There's no way I can pass it up. That's kind of how I feel about saying like didn't have to accept the job. It's like, yeah, like I don't know, I couldn't be Britney Spears' touring manager. I know nothing about touring, but if like someone came up to me and was like, "Want to be Britney Spears' touring manager?" I wouldn't be like, "No, I think there's probably better people." I'd be like, "Yep, I can do it. I'll figure it out." You know? And that's kind of like how I feel like that's the energy he had. Like week 5, whenever that press conference was, he admitted he was like, "I'm learning on the job. Like I'm trying my hardest." I'm not saying not saying it would work out, it always works out right, but there is something that goes into you have to have faith in yourself and you want to take advantage of these opportunities because coaches don't always get like he might not have an opportunity to like how players like to come to the 49ers because then they can go like Aziz Al-Shair did this. Who's the guy? He's in Jacksonville now. There's been plenty of linebackers that have came and they'll be the third linebacker. And then they end up getting way better deals somewhere else, like long-term deals, because they had like a prove it year here. So Steve Wilks could have thought like, hey, if I'm a good coach for the 49ers for 1 to 2 years and I keep up the defense success that they've already had, the other two guys are now head coaches. Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans are both head coaches. This might be my opportunity to be a head coach again. So he's not gonna like turn down that opportunity. uh, Ram Ramon? Ramon. Dude, why can't I pronounce anything? Like, why did I decide to be a podcaster when I can't pronounce anything? Uh, this guy, I'm so sorry for not being able to pronounce your name, said it was a accumulation of a lot of things not related to Super Bowl. I kind of agree. I feel like I said that in within my why I feel like he was let go. If the defense wasn't totally prepared, then the offense was not prepared as well. I didn't think that. I mean, I think players admitted that they were not prepared at all. Bosa not getting the job done to begin with. Yeah, Nick Bosa struggled. You're right, regardless of Steve Wilks. But I mean, as a defensive coordinator, if your star player is struggling, it's on you to help him, right? Like I kind of blame Kyle Shanahan. Like Debo Samuel has been struggling. Like Kyle, you know that Debo's not a wide receiver that wins one-on-one routes. Like he's not a good route runner. You know that what you need to do is scheme him open. So part of that blame is on Debo. Like Debo, be a freaking better route runner. What are you doing? But then also like know your personnel. Know what type of things you need to do to make them be successful. So if I blame Kyle Shanahan for not giving better opportunity to get Brandon Ayuk the ball, better opportunity to get Debo the ball in open space, to get George Kittle the ball in open space. I blame Kyle Shanahan for those things as much or more than I do the players. So I feel the same way about Steve Wilks. Like Nick Bosa, yeah, fucking don't screw off and not that he was screwing off, I'm sure he was training, but he himself admitted that he didn't train as much as he normally would have with his contract stuff going on. So yeah, Nick Bosa, like this is your fault, but also Steve Wilks, if you see your star players struggling, start trying to do different, like whatever you're doing isn't working, try to switch it up to get him free opportunities to rush the quarterback. Um, Maybe this game was just the last straw. I think all these things are right. I think it was accumulation of stuff. I don't think it was solely on the Super Bowl, but I think probably some of the Super Bowl had to do with it. I heard, I think it was Ryan G. Hensley said like going into the game that he was on a really short leash. So I think they would have had to win the game in order to keep him around. I think is what happened, which I kind of thought I felt like I didn't I felt like the Super Bowl, they would have had more leniency towards because going against the Chiefs and such a good team. I thought if they would have lost that NFC Championship game, like it looked like they were going to, when effort was a big problem and the defense couldn't tackle for shit and they were playing 10 yards off the entire game and letting Jared Goff dice them up. Yeah, I was like, Steve Wilks getting fired for sure. So, but I also tweeted in the middle of the game when Kyle Shanahan called that timeout. I was like, Steve Wilks getting fired. Because, like, you don't show up guys like that. Like, you yell at them in the headset, you yell at them after the game, I like even if you call a timeout and change it, you just call a timeout and change it. Kyle made it dramatic. Like Kyle ran on the field doing this, screaming at you. Like he made it a show, and to me, that's just embarrassing for Steve Wilks. So one, if you're Steve Wilks, you're like, I don't want to sit here and be embarrassed. And two, if you're the players, you're like, well, I have zero faith in this guy because like Kyle Shanahan clearly thinks he's a joke, and Kyle Shanahan thinks you're a joke, so clearly you're getting fired. It makes sense that he got fired, is what I'm saying, basically. Like, we should have all seen this coming. His game plan when it mattered late in the game was horrible. We saw Kyle upset late in the overtime with that timeout. I agree. I agree. I agree. Spags out of this. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that I've read most of the comments. The defense did real good in the first quarter. Oh, shoot. This is not monetized. I just realized that makes me sad. I keep forgetting to monetize these videos, guys. Um, Dang it. Why do I do that? Hold on one second. Why do I do that? It's because hold on. It's because like the way that I set up the streams is like all on StreamYard, and then you have to like go to this whole other page just for a behind the what it's like to be a content creator. Just like a different page that I always forget. If I could show you guys, there's actually a little notepad that says one, "You are my sunshine" that my best friend put on my laptop, and then two that says monetize because I keep forgetting. But I did just monetize it. Only reason I was like, oh, there's no super chats. That makes sense. You guys couldn't super chat before. I think now you can. Hire hire Bill Belichick for defensive coordinator. I did talk about this. Rex Ryan is another guy. I'm not going to talk about Bill Belichick because I already talked about him. But I will talk about Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan went out when he was talking and said that he wouldn't come back just to coach like any defense. For example, like the Vikings, he was like, I would not come back if the Vikings asked me to. But apparently, he personally called Mike McCarthy himself and said that he would come back to coach a team that was Super Bowl, like had Super Bowl caliber, like could be in the Super Bowl if they just had that extra little edge. And Rex Ryan apparently said to Mike McCarthy that he would go coach the Cowboys. 49ers maybe aren't as maybe don't have as much name value as the Cowboys, but I think they have almost as much. To me, they have as much. I don't know. Called a horrible game versus the Vikings. That was bad. Writing was on the wall. I agree. Writing has been on the wall for a while. Can't see the 49ers ever winning a Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan. This is an interesting, little bit different than Steve Wilks. Yeah, I don't know. I have way less faith than I've ever had because I think every year there's been some reasoning that made sense. Like, oh, if they just made this one adjustment, and yeah, Kyle Shanahan has been in these really unlucky situations, but to me, there was always ways to not to not blame him purposely or not blame him specifically. I think this was the most on him. Like his team was just not prepared. I don't know the Hidden Pearls, Hidden Gems podcast that Travis Kelce does with his brother. They laughed. Travis Kelce giggled at Kyle Shanahan. He was like, I can't believe this guy kept the ball first in overtime. Like, haha. He was like laughing. He was like, they gave us that advantage. Like, we all talked about this. Andy Reid talked about, like, no matter what, if we had the opportunity, we would defer. And if they took it, that obviously they would defer. And they had all the hidden heights. There we go. Someone corrected me. There we go. But yeah. Travis Kelce was laughing at Kyle Shanahan's inability to understand how to correctly game manage that overtime situation. Now, when we're talking about game managing blunders, the only hard part is that's literally why Andy Reid was fired from the Eagles. It wasn't because he was like so terrible. His team was consistently almost there, consistently on the doorstep, and he was terrible in late game situations with managing the game. And it was basically not until he went to the Chiefs and got Patrick Mahomes that he turned it around. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say that you want to fire Kyle Shanahan when you have an example of that, and then that goes to like Brock Purdy played more than good enough. I thought he played, a clean, more game manager, more game manager style game. Like I don't think he did any like unbelievable plays, but aside from one really risky, like almost interception play, for the most part, he protected the football. I think he had 255 yards. He had like over 60% completion rate. He had one touchdown, so no interceptions, nothing unbelievable. I definitely think I wish Kyle Shanahan would have called more plays for him to utilize his legs more. I know in his last like media availability when he was cleaning out his locker yesterday, he said one of the things he's going to work on. Um, yeah, I keep seeing the thing about the Kansas City parade. I addressed it. Sorry, I was just reading the comments, but I addressed it earlier. I don't know exactly like enough information on who was hurt and if anyone was seriously injured or not, but absolutely horrific. So much better than or bigger than football. My heart goes out to anyone there just for how traumatizing and scary that is. Anyone definitely, anyone injured or their families, if anyone's injured, absolutely horrible. I don't want to get, too political, but just, I, you know, I think there should be rules in place that make things like that a lot harder. It's very sad how many parents are afraid to let their kids go to school, let their kids go to events, even myself, if I want to go to like if I remember when Taylor Swift had like a big concert, not that I could afford to go, but because those things were like $1,000. But when you think of the Super Bowl and concerts and stuff like that, it's things are very scary nowadays, and that makes me very sad. So, I just don't want people to think I'm like ignoring that topic because I know it's a deep topic. I went live, I think, as it was happening, so I didn't hear enough about it, so I don't want to speak on it too much, but I am aware. Um, and my heart goes out to those people. I forget what I was saying before. But someone says, "Thank you for addressing that." No worries. Prayers out to everyone. Really quick, Isaiah Faithful says, "Yo, what's up, Ashley? How are you? I'm a big fan of your content. Love the 49ers content. You're one of my favorite 49ers YouTubers to watch. I'm disappointed we lost the Super Bowl again." Thank you so much for the positive comment about me. It's my first full season. I wish I started like game 1. I think I started around week 3. I started week 5, whenever we played the Giants. Um, Smash the like button. Someone says, thank you guys so much. Make sure to like and subscribe. I forgot to monetize this video until like 40 minutes in. So definitely liking and subscribing will help pump it out to new people. And you guys can come back and join me tomorrow. And then on Thursday, I'm going to have Marco on. If you guys didn't see my live from yesterday, I had Jose Sanchez on. He's a writer for Grant Cohn's website, the 49ers Fan Nation SI. So he was actually in Vegas. He went to the Super Bowl, gave us a live breakdown on what it was like talking to players. He had a really personal experience with Jerry Greenlaw. So that's all on my last live. Make sure to like and subscribe and see that. But I kind of want to talk a little bit. Will you be doing SF Giants baseball in summer? I'm not. I may like. I'd love to try to get into it a little bit more. I'm more of like a. You guys know Chris Roscoe's from Twitter. He always calls people like casuals. I'm more of a casual when it comes to like baseball. Like I'll go to games, but I don't know a lot about it. Even basketball. I watch the Warriors. I like the Warriors, but I'm more of like a playoff basketball girly. I know that that's probably horrible to. Oh, I just saw. Yeah, I just saw the how many people were hurt. Really, really sad. So sorry about that. I'm just scrolling through comments. I'm not ignoring that stuff. I just feel like I want to keep this a little bit light. And I have addressed that, but my heart goes out to all those people. Someone says, Ashley, hiring you as the new head coach. I agree. Let's do it. I don't know why my sock isn't on all the way. I'm in New York and it's really cold outside, but it's kind of like warm in the house because I have a heater right here. I wonder if I can show you guys. That's that heater. Um, but By the way, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I hope you guys are having, even if you don't have, whether if you have a partner or something, I hope that you do something sweet for them and make them. I'm like kind of a sucker for. I like occasions that you get to surprise people. So if it's a partner or something like that, make sure to do something, even if it's small. I don't think that you have to like be grand and go to super fancy dinners and buy expensive gifts, but just like anything thoughtful I think it's really nice if you have a partner do that. If you don't have a partner, I think people can be so negative about Valentine's Day. Tell your friends you love them. Eat make some cookies. Tell your sister, your mom, your dad, brother, whatever. Um, just be nice when you're walking. I'm gonna go to the gym later. I'm gonna walk down the street and make sure I smile at everyone a little bit extra. I think it's just nice to have these little events that break up the monotony of the days. Um, I know that's kind of sad. Happy Thanksgiving, happy Love Day, Steve Wilks. You're fired. Kind of sucks for him. Sorry about that. Sorry about that guy. Okay, I think that I might have um who said like Tom Sula? I wish so much I understood what this guy was saying. Don't you guys want to know why he brought Jim Tom Sula up? Nightmares, having nightmares. Um, we could only say the what if, but Purdy did come out, said God. Wow. We could only say the what if, but Purdy did come out and said God know why they didn't win. I I think maybe you're saying like Purdy addressed his faith in God in his post game press conference. Yeah, I mean Brock Purdy is definitely religious, and I think he like leans on his faith in order to get him through hard times. But I've always found, as someone who's not like I'm definitely like spiritual and religious. Like I believe in like praying to God, but I'm not like never been someone who like consistently goes to church or anything like that. Um, and I don't think that Brock Purdy is someone who like he's not who's the guy everyone makes fun of? He was on the team, the Florida Gators. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? He was like a quarterback and then he ended up trying to come back for like as a tight end in Jacksonville. How am I blanking on his name? He was like on the same team with Urban Meyer and all those guys. Anyways, I feel like some religious people, Carson Wentz is kind of like this too. They like find it a huge deal to try to push their religion on you, and I never feel like Brock Purdy is like that. I feel like Brock Purdy is really respectful for how he talks about his faith and just how it helps him through personally, which I appreciate. Did you see the 9 Yep, Tim, Tebow. Exactly what I was talking about. I felt like he was very him and Carson Wentz, whenever they talked about religion, I felt like it was, like, very pushy, where you're like, "Do you care about converting me more than you care about winning this game? What are you doing? This we're trying to talk about football. Let's keep the objective the objective." I feel like with Brock Purdy, he's never, like, trying to force his faith on anyone. He's just kind of talking about it in, like, the sense that he is. I also always find it funny when like if a team wins, I remember Jalen Ramsey did this one time where he was like, God just wanted us to win. God just wanted us to win. I'm like, God isn't a Rams fan. Like whoever they're playing on the other side, like I'm sure there's religious players on that side that, think that God wants them to win. Like God's not choosing sides on football. He has bigger issues to worry about as we've established today. Um so I always find stuff like that kind of funny. Um do you see the Niners bringing in Belichick as DC? Who should the Niners look at for DC? Because I do not want Brandon Staley. I also don't want Brandon Staley. Random turn there. So I did address both these things, but before I'm gonna close this out soon because I think I've gone through most of the comments. But I'll give like a quick little refresher when it comes to Bill Belichick. My problem is he's the most winningest coach in NFL history. I don't know if he wants to be a DC. It might be because that's gonna take some like ego and pride adjustment to like he went from and not only was he coach but he was head coach and general manager for like 20 years. That might be exaggerative, but for like a lot of years he's had all the power. So for him to come in and work under Kyle Shanahan, who's also a guy who like really likes having power, I feel like that might be like a little bit of an ego pride thing. But if he was open to it, hell yeah, I would be down. I think that's why some people were saying, would you be down to fire Kyle Shanahan or demote Kyle Shanahan to be offensive coordinator if Belichick wanted to be head coach? I'm not saying I would do that, but I think all of these things are things that if you're Jed York behind closed doors, you're at least having interviews. You know what I mean? If you're Kyle Shanahan, because you have to remember, Bill Belichick called the 49ers and gave the 49ers the first chance at getting Jimmy Garoppolo back when they traded for Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017. So there has to be some sort of relationship there, whether it's between Bill Belichick and Kyle Shanahan, maybe having like faith in each other. Belichick has worked with his son for a lot, Kyle for a lot of his years. Kyle Shanahan is the son of a head coach, so maybe there's some like mutual respect there that could allow them both to kind of like drop their egos a little bit, and maybe also now that the head coaching gigs are kind of all filled up, maybe Belichick would be more open to taking a lower job. Like maybe earlier on he wasn't down because he probably thought he could get a head coaching job, but now that he hasn't gotten a head coaching job, maybe he's more down to take a defensive coordinator position. Um, but to answer this, uh, I could definitely see it. I don't know if Bill Belichick himself would be down, but you definitely, if you're Jed York, you sit down and have a meeting with him. If you're Kyle Shanahan, if you're John Lynch, you're calling him, trying to make him the best offer. The one good thing with with like coaching and assistant coaching is there's no salary cap. And Jed York has been one of the owners who's like willing to kind of spend money. So if it's money he's at, like if he wants to be paid like a head coach, I think that Jed York would probably be down to give him $14 million, or whatever. Kyle, what if you said, "Hey, Bill Belichick, you're not going to be the head coach, but we're going to pay you just as much." And all you have to do, you can just sit in your little room. You don't really like being with the media. When you're a head coach, you have to talk to the media way more. Instead, you're going to have to talk to the media like once a week. It's not going to be that big of a deal. You're going to get to coach these star players. I don't know. I could see, but then that goes back to scheme fit, right? Like they didn't like Steve Wilks because he specialized in the defensive backs, in the defensive backfield, and they wanted him to coach the wide nine. Is Bill Belichick's not going to come in and coach the wide nine? That's not what he does. So that once again goes to like, it wouldn't be like Steve Wilks, where Steve Wilks is coming in and Kyle Shanahan's telling him what to do. If Bill Belichick comes in and runs the defense, you're going to be doing what he wants to do. So, like I said, from both sides, Kyle Shanahan and Bill Belichick, it would be some like drop of the ego that they would need to do. But I'm definitely for it, for sure. Like I would love, like if there was a way to make that happen, I'm down. I just don't know if he would be down. And if not, I think it's Daniel Bullocks, unless I'm pronouncing that wrong. He's the current defensive back head he is the current defensive backs coach on the 49ers, and he's been there for multiple years, worked under D'Amico Ryans. I was surprised that they didn't hire him last year. He was within the hiring like they interviewed him, but I think he's just a little bit younger, so maybe they thought he needed a little more experience. But if they wanted to keep it in-house, I could see Daniel Bullocks. So yeah, I think Bill Belichick, I think Rex Ryan you have to give a call, because once again, Rex Ryan said, "I'm not coming back if it's to coach the freaking Bears. Like I don't want to do that, but if I can coach a team that's going to be in the Super Bowl and help just give them that one little tick." He was talking about the Cowboys, but the 49ers have been just as successful. They're just as much of a name brand, and they've been even more successful in the playoffs than the Cowboys. So yeah, I think Bill Belichick and Rex Ryan, you 100% have to interview, and you have to make them the largest offer and kind of be willing to concede and, get on your knees a little bit and be like, "Please, how do we make this work?" And if neither of them want it, then I definitely would look at Daniel Bullocks and just people inside the organization, because I think going outside the organization was a mistake when it comes to Steve Wilks. And I'm not saying that's on him. I just think that they weren't super um keen to let him bring his system, and then that undermined him and allowed players to never really fully buy in. Um there was a big shooting today. I mean, I don't know if you're a but you guarantee okay, I don't know, I don't wanna, like, block this comment, but I've addressed the shooting multiple times. I also don't know if I'm, like, allowed to say that word on here, but for, like, because 'cause I've been talking for, like, an hour. If you missed it, I 100 my prayers a million, 100,000% go out to everyone who was there, just because that's a traumatic event. Even if you're not injured, it's so scary, like, you're like, I think right now parents and even not parents, like I don't have any kids, but parents are scared to let their kids go to school. everyone is scared to go to big events. If it's a concert, if it's a football game, going to a 49ers game, like you always have to think about these things. I think it's very, very sad the state of the country right now. I think that there should be laws that are in place that are make these things way, way harder. I'm very, very liberal. I feel like I don't know, I've talked a lot about like sexism and stuff on my Twitter. This isn't a political podcast and I'm not trying to alienate anyone, but I don't know. I don't know. I just heard this comment. I've addressed this before. My heart goes out to everyone there, and then especially I don't know much about it because I started this live when I think news started breaking about this, but my heart goes out to anyone that was injured and their families, and I pray that everything is okay with everyone, and if there was injuries that no one is seriously hurt, and that everyone gets better, and that. I don't know. I think that they should have like free therapy for the rest of their life, and people like that should be in jail. Like I don't know, just wanted to mention this because every time it comes up, I'm worried that, if you weren't in the chat earlier that you didn't hear me address it, and I don't want you to think I'm ignoring this. I've addressed it every time I've seen a comment about it. Anyways, um, sorry. 49ers hiring Bill Belichick isn't realistic, but definitely a possibility. That's kind of how I feel, right? Like you give him the highest offer, you say you're going to make concessions, you say he can come in and run whatever defense he wants. Um, Tell him you're going to pay him as much as you pay Kyle Shanahan. The only thing that's different is going to be like the job title name. I I don't know if he'll want to do it because I think his ego might be like if he wants to win a Super Bowl, that it's going to be my laptop is gonna die. If he wants to win a Super Bowl, I think he's gonna want to do it. Oh my God, how nice is it that there's a plug-in right here? Beautiful. Oh, sorry, it went dark for a second. Um, but let's talk about the unbelievable sad news. Okay, I'm gonna close this out because I've been talking for about an hour. And I wanted to make this mostly a Steve Wilks thing, but we've talked about Steve Wilks, we've talked about Kyle Shanahan. Um, to wrap it up, Bill Belichick would be an amazing hire. I don't think he's going to want to be demoted, but if they can pay him as much as they pay a head coach, and if they can tell him that he can run his system, and Kyle Shanahan is willing to, success to that, and I think that what this guy is saying is, what if you demote Kyle Shanahan? I agree. That's also something you have to consider if you're Jed York. These are all probably closed door conversations that you want to have like privately with Bill Belichick before you don't want to piss off Kyle Shanahan. When I think of Andy Reid and the success that he's had, I do have faith in Kyle Shanahan and giving him a little bit more time, but I definitely don't think you rule anything out. So Bill Belichick is someone who I would want to target. Rex Ryan is someone I would be interested in targeting. And then if not, I think Daniel Bullocks, who is the defensive backs coordinator, and he's learned a lot under D'Amico Ryans. He's been with the organization for a long time. I think staying inside would be a really smart plan. I understand why Steve Wilks was let go. I can even see it being a mutual decision, but I don't blame him for the Super Bowl loss, and I don't think he should be a scapegoat for the Super Bowl loss. I think Kyle Shanahan coached worse than like I think his side of the ball did worse than the defensive side of the ball did. But yeah. So, anyways, I hope everyone has a really great Valentine's Day. Like I said, even if you have a partner, make sure to spoil them and make them feel loved and thought of. And even if you don't, your friends, your family, a stranger walking down the street. I'm gonna, give my friends an extra hug today. I ate a bunch of cookies earlier. I'm gonna smile at some strangers on my way to the gym. I think it's just an excuse to be kind to everyone, especially with the really sad news that's going on. I think just being kinder is so impactful. Like people don't really think about it, but when you're just walking down the road and people are, holding a door open for you, smiling for you, I think if you're having a hard time, a sad day, a hard day, angry, whatever, it's hard to stay in that negative emotion when you see someone being positive. So try to spread that if you can. Make sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be putting out a lot of videos this week and all off season long. Going to try to go to stuff, give you guys live in-person accounts of things like I know they have the coaches meetings, the drafts, all that. I'm going to try to go to as much as possible and talk about as much as possible. Yesterday I had Jose on. He was in Vegas asking questions, went to the Super Bowl. So I'll make sure to cut up clips from that. And then I'm going to be going live with Marco on Friday, and we're going to be addressing more of this. I'm sure more drama will happen. Yesterday I did a whole live on Brandon Ayuk. personally chatted with his girlfriend because I followed her on TikTok for a long time and was able to message her. So all that is within my yesterday's live and the day before that's live. I'll be cutting up lots of videos. Make sure to like and subscribe. This is my first season doing this, and I've had such an amazing time, and it's felt really nice for me to make friends with everyone and to feel all the support. So happy Valentine's Day. Sad for Steve Wilks, but hopefully it was, the best decision for both parties. I hope he gets a job somewhere else and the 49ers can upgrade their position. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great night or day where